On the eve of the Battle of Kosovo in 1389, the Balkan plain lay silent under a tense and watchful sky. Two great armies had converged, each representing not only military power, but the future direction of southeastern Europe. As night descended over the camps, Sultan Murad I prepared for what would become the defining confrontation of his reign. Age had marked his long rule, yet it had not diminished his resolve. The coming dawn would test decades of expansion, leadership, and ambition. Within the Ottoman encampment, activity continued long after sunset. Torches flickered between rows of tents as commanders reviewed final arrangements. Scouts returned with reports of enemy positions, while officers relayed instructions through disciplined ranks. At the center of this controlled intensity stood Murad himself, presiding over a war council that brought together his most trusted military leaders. The council included seasoned commanders from Anatolia and Rumelia, men hardened by years of campaigning across Thrace, Bulgaria, and Macedonia. Murad's sons, Bayezid and Yaqub, were present as well, representing the next generation of Ottoman leadership. Discussions were measured and strategic. The terrain of the Kosovo plain was examined carefully. The open field offered opportunities for maneuver, but also risks if formations broke under pressure. Murad listened more than he spoke. His leadership style had long emphasized consultation with capable advisors, yet the final decisions rested firmly with him. Reports indicated that Prince Lazar's allied Christian army was positioned opposite, composed largely of heavy cavalry, supported by infantry and regional contingents. The strength of their armored knights posed a direct challenge, particularly in a frontal engagement. After reviewing intelligence and assessing troop morale, Murad issued clear instructions for deployment. Ottoman archers were to be positioned forward and along the flanks, ready to disrupt advancing enemy cavalry. Infantry units would anchor the center, forming a disciplined line capable of absorbing impact. Behind them, reserves would remain prepared to exploit weaknesses or reinforce faltering positions. Cavalry forces, including elite contingents under Bayezid's command, were to execute flanking maneuvers when the moment presented itself. The organization reflected years of tactical refinement. Ottoman warfare had evolved beyond simple frontier raids into coordinated, multi-layered battlefield strategy. Archers would soften the enemy charge, infantry would maintain cohesion, and cavalry would deliver decisive counterblows. Murad understood that discipline and timing would determine the outcome more than raw numbers. As preparations continued, the spiritual dimension of the moment became evident. Before retiring for the night, Murad withdrew for prayer. Chroniclers describe him seeking divine guidance and expressing humility despite the magnitude of his power. The aging sultan, aware of both his responsibility and mortality, approached the coming battle with solemnity. For him, the conflict was not merely territorial, but tied to destiny and faith. Across the plain, the Christian alliance also made ready. Campfires illuminated armored silhouettes as knights prepared their weapons and horses. Clergy moved among the ranks, offering blessings. The sense of impending collision was shared by both camps. The field of Kosovo had become the stage for a confrontation neither side could avoid. Within the Ottoman ranks, morale remained steady. Veterans of earlier Balkan campaigns trusted in their training and leadership. Younger soldiers looked toward Murad with admiration. Despite his advancing age, he had chosen to lead personally rather than command from a distant capital. His presence reinforced unity and purpose, and the positioning of forces on the eve of battle reflected strategic foresight. Murad placed his infantry at the center to create a firm defensive spine. Archers were distributed to maximize coverage and maintain continuous volleys. Cavalry units were instructed to maintain flexibility, avoiding premature engagement until the enemy committed fully. Communication lines between commanders were clarified to prevent confusion once combat began. The atmosphere during the night oscillated between calm and anticipation. The distant sounds of preparation drifted across the plain. Horses were secured, armor adjusted, and final instructions delivered. Officers walked among their men, ensuring readiness and reinforcing discipline. Murad's camp, though guarded and solemn, radiated controlled confidence. The Sultan's decision to personally oversee deployment carried symbolic weight. It signaled that the campaign's outcome would not be entrusted to subordinates alone. His long reign had been built on calculated expansion and steady consolidation. Now, facing a coalition determined to halt Ottoman progress, he sought to demonstrate unwavering leadership. As midnight passed, the camps gradually quieted. Soldiers rested where they could, knowing dawn would bring chaos. Murad reportedly spent part of the night in reflection, balancing strategic calculation with spiritual contemplation. His war council had concluded with clear directives. The army's formation was set. The geography of Kosovo itself added gravity to the moment. The open terrain offered no natural barriers to conceal movements. Once battle commenced, the clash would be direct and intense. Murad's deployment sought to exploit this openness by drawing enemy cavalry into controlled zones of fire and counterattack. By the early hours before dawn, a chill settled over the plain. A faint light began to break along the horizon. Commanders took their positions. Standards were raised. Drums and horns prepared to signal the beginning of engagement. The alignment of archers, infantry, and cavalry stood as silent testimony to the planning of the previous night. For Murad, the eve of the Battle of Kosovo represented the culmination of decades of leadership. From a frontier principality, he had forged a powerful state spanning 2 continents. The coming battle would either cement that legacy or challenge it profoundly. His age, rather than diminishing his resolve, appeared to sharpen his focus. As the first rays of sunlight illuminated the field, both armies faced one another across the expanse of Kosovo. The prayers of the night gave way to the reality of war. Murad's strategic positioning, shaped by counsel and experience, was about to be tested in one of the most consequential clashes of the medieval Balkans. The silence broke with the signals of engagement. What had been planned in careful deliberation under torchlight would unfold in thunderous confrontation. The eve had passed. History now moved forward on the field of Kosovo.